Welcome to Happily Ever After is just the beginning. Keeping your relationship not just together, but happy, and we mean truly happy, is part art and part science. You've come to the right place. Here's your host, Leslie Dories.
So, in my view, marriage is really the toughest relationship. That's because it's a combination of every other relationship you've ever been in. It's a romance, it's a family, it's a friendship, it's a business partnership. And it's the only intimately connected relationship that you enter into as equals. And every other relationship, romantic relationship you've ever had before marriage has ended. So how do you make this unique relationship work when all of your other ones have failed? Now, the answer isn't simply love. I mean, hopefully love was present on your wedding day, but that alone isn't going to get you through. Sorry, George, Paul, John, and Ringo. No, you actually need skills, things that you should have been taught early on, but you missed because you missed the Relationship 101 class. Well, you're in luck because today you're going to learn about how you can get that all-important information on relationship success. Because business life and relationship coach Michael Gribas is here to let you in on an approach that brings quick and lasting results. So, Michael, thanks for coming on the show and talking about what is truly challenging. I mean, relationships, a lot of people think relationships are normal, and up to a point they are, but then after that, it's kind of like, what do I do now?
Oh, it is amazing because when you look at a relationship, first off, I always ask, what is a relationship you have with yourself? Is it healthy? Are you in a good place? Because when you're not in a good place and you got all kinds of things going on in your head, it makes it very challenging for the other person to meet you where you are. And that's one of the beautiful things about coaching is we look at the individual person and we just uncover the incredible, beautiful human being that is there. And then you give the best of yourself to the other person.
Yeah, that's the idea. That's the ideal. And so looking at your title, you're a business life and relationship coach. You would think that those things wouldn't, that they'd all be different. But you're just talking about the one thing that obviously links them all together is, the person, right? The person who's doing the business, who's living the life and is in the relationship, right?
Oh my gosh, yes, it is. In fact, what happens is the very principle you use in a business relationship with a business partner or with your boss is still the same principle of communicating to cooperation.
And that's a really, that seems like it would be a very simplistic, very, kind of idea, but it's a lot more challenging than we make it sound.
Oh, it is. And the reason we do that is because now we bring our past baggages, our past relationships that have failed, and we bring that all into the equation. So I know with you help people rewrite the equation of how they show up, how they process, how they communicate, how they listen very carefully with a loving, compassionate, welcoming heart. And then you got us guys. Well,
Now stop selling yourself short.
Well, I love the phrase, and I use it in coaching all the time. What is the matter of fact? And the matter of fact is us guys are pretty rigid. We can get very blinded, short-sighted at times, and it simply is a fact. That's what I bring to the relationship. And at times, I don't even realize how far down that road I am. And then I expect my partner to meet me in that place. And they're like, I'm not going there. It's not safe. It's not fun. It's actually pretty darn scary. And you want me to meet you in that place? And that's why as a coach, we're able to recreate the place, a safe place for you to come to have that wonderful, either hard, tough conversation, or to simply keep on building that wonderful relationship.
Okay, now I'm going to call you on something because I think that it can be scary for women to go to where the men go, but I'm going to argue it can be awfully scary for the men to go where the women want them to go. Because, you know, and I do think that it's part of the biology of men and women. In many ways, we're more alike than we are different, but in some of those different ways, it can be really challenging. I mean, and I know that one of the things, and I always tease about this, is that men are really great at compartmentalizing. You know, when the day is done, when they come home from work and they've done whatever it is, they don't want to rehash. Now, they might want to rehash their successes, yes, but they don't want to rehash the things that didn't go well. And of course, women like to rehash all kinds of stuff because it's the way we process things. And so I always call romantic relationships the cosmic joke. Who decided that men and women should live together like this? Because in some respects, we're really, really different. So, you know, so what is the process? What are some really important things that maybe people just don't understand about relationships?
Well, and you brought up a wonderful point, is that men don't want to go where the women are because it isn't a safe place, because they're now functioning in a place of high emotions, and there could be hormones for them going on where guys do not have that biological effect happening to them. So now it becomes an area that they cannot relate to. So as far as it being in a relationship, understanding that we are on the same team, and coaching is about simplifying and making it very easy for us to have a dialogue and a conversation, no matter how tough the conversation is, because we're on the same team. And to do that, you have to have the right mindset, which means you have to set a high standard for yourself and being very accountable to what you say and what kind of environment you bring out to let the other person walk into so great things can happen. And yet, so many guys, when it comes to tough things, what they're going to do is they're going to try to dominate. They're going to try to control. They want to rule over the situation. And a lot of times it can be very argumentative and combative because we're used to fighting that way as men in an aggressive world. We have to fight for every dollar. We fight for our jobs. We sometimes fight with each other just because we're guys and we want to fight. It's just it's a terrible part of our DNA. And yet the woman wants to come in at a collaborative way of communicating, going, let's mold this. Let's change it. Let's look at it. Let's unpack it and unpack it and unpack it. And guys are going, oh my gosh.
I'm tired of unpacking. Can't we just sit and watch TV, right?
Yes. So there is so much dynamics at play. And that's why with what we do here, we help create that common ground of cooperation and communication and give them the avenue to really go, wow, I blew that up emotionally into such a big place when really it was a very small issue. And now don't let that little hill turn into a major mountain and have to fight on that battleground.
Well, I mean, and it's, you know, and I said earlier that a lot of people think relationships are natural. And again, falling in love is very natural. It's a biological process. People don't see, you know, that's one of the things I think people miss about relationships is I call the falling in love process the time it takes us to meet, mate, and procreate so that the species continues. And then after that, we're kind of like, okay, now what do we do, right? And we lose those neurotransmitters, those high hormones. And then everybody thinks, well, I'm not with the right person because I'm not, you know, we're not wanting to rip each other's clothes off 24/7. And not understanding that that's just a natural part of the relationship. And you can actually prepare for that. You can actually build a stronger foundation so that when the hormones and the neurotransmitters die down, you still want to be with this person. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people struggle with, because they're in love with the idea of being in love. They're in love with this idea that there's a soulmate out there that is going to make this process painless and bump free, and all the other things, all the other myths that we put on about finding the right person, when we actually can create. I mean, yes, you have to have somebody who's compatible with you to start with, but you can sort of create the right, I don't want to say the right person, because that's not exactly, but you can actually elicit the best person from somebody else, can't you?
Well, actually, you're using the right word with create, because you are co-creators of this relationship. And see, you were talking about the autonomic system, and it's a biological function of our body with the fight or flight. So some men will come into a relationship and they're strong and they're powerful, and the woman loves that about them because they take control. And then as time goes on, that control becomes controlling. And all of a sudden now it starts to transform itself into something that she's going, I don't like how much he wants to control me. And yet that's what drew her to him. So then she wants to flight and get away from that controlling, dominant male who now goes, but that's what you married. That's who I am. That's my identity. That's how I am in life and business. And that's how I am with my friends. And now you want me to change me? Oh, how dare you do that?
Well, what is the old adage that men marry women hoping they won't change and women marry men hoping they will? Which is, again, that who designed this system? Who thought this was a good idea? And, this is one of the things that I know you and I work with all the time, because it's helping people to understand the dynamics of a relationship, the lifespan of a relationship, and then if you happen to have children, that throws just a whole nother wrench into the works. But there are things that we actually do know, and there are things that if people could learn and implement, no relationship is going to be trial free. I mean, life happens, stuff happens, we can't control that. But if we have a strong enough foundation, we can ride those waves. We can not capsize the boat, so to speak. But this seems to be, what's the word I'm looking for? This seems to be a novel idea to a lot of people because, like I said, falling in love is easy. Deciding to spend time with somebody, at least in the beginning, is easy. And then we're told marriage is hard work. So if we find it being hard work, we think we're doing it right.
Oh, yeah. And there is so much to that. And that's why, as we sit down and bring clarity to the relationship, helping them understand that what is the foundation of belief that they have about themselves, about the other person, and how the relationship should go. See, you and I grew up in an age where we've seen shows on TV that a man would never, ever hit a woman. And in our society today, you turn on the TV, you've got men beating up women, you got women beating up women. And our culture is just flipped this around and literally perverted it and turned it into something horrible and ugly. And we're subjected to so much of that.
Right. Well, but it's entertaining. I mean, I always talk about, and part of the reason why the show is called what it is because in fairy tales, they write off and live happily ever after. And then the next time you see them, they're in the knockdown, drag out divorce, and you never see what happens in between. I tell people a good relationship is incredibly boring to watch. It's not boring to be in, but a good relationship. I mean, my husband and I have been watching Ozark. And he keeps looking at me, goes, do you want some more drama? He goes, I think maybe we should have, I said, no, I'm perfectly fine with the lack of drama in our life. But that's what you're talking about, that, the media, because that's what people find interesting. And the happy couple who's just walking along, living their life, enjoying things. Nobody wants to spend an hour with them. Oh my God. It's like, snooze fest.
Well, it is. And what happens is it starts to actually program your subconscious. Mm-hmm. You see this so much and for such a long period of time, it now starts to take on an identity all its own. So in an argument, growing up, I was not the kind of man I am today. And I was everything your mother said, don't you bring that home. And I would agree with her. I should not have been brought home. Right. And as I looked at that, I was told by society that was what was going to give you the most out of life. Uh-huh. And you need to get everything you can for yourself right now because that'll make you happy. And being in a relationship is about living a fulfilled life with that other person. It's fulfillment. And I
like that.
Yes, because we bring that out in people. We bring that out in the relationship of what fulfillment is. So your job and my job is to help redefine these words and the foundation of understanding of who they are, what they believe, why they believe it, and then how can I share the best of what I have to offer to you?
Well, fantastic. So this is Happily Ever After is just the beginning on webtalkradio.net. I'm Leslie Dories, and I'm talking healthy relationships with fellow coach Michael Grebus. And if you're confused about how to have the loving, supportive, successful marriage that you truly want, guess what? You are not alone. But you don't have to live in confusion or worse, in despair. And I encourage you to not wait 1 minute longer to take action. So please give me a call or send me an email to schedule your free, no obligation, create your happily ever after strategy session. You can reach me by phone at area code 919-924-0463. That's 919-924-0463. Or you can send me an email at Leslie, Lesli, at foundationscoachingnc.com. That's FOUNDATIONS. Coaching, N as in Nancy, C as in Charlie.com. And now I want to get back to this conversation with Michael and a new approach, the new approach that I promised at the beginning of the show. So Michael, what exactly is coaching, specifically relationship coaching, and how is it helpful for them?
Well, one of the great things about coaching, and I coach psychologists and therapists. That's a part of my business model. And when we look at the difference between coaching and therapy, what happens is a coach will take what's going on in your life and how it's impacting you right here, right now. And then we're going to look at that impact and we're going to help you resolve that impact. And this way it's going to free you up to be able to move on in that relationship. Where therapy, they're going to take you into all of the past events and situations that have happened in relationships, and they're going to help you discover the whys, the wheres, the hows, and really spend a lot of time in that area. And as I've talked to therapists, I've asked them, is that a good definition of the contrast between it? And every single one has said, yes, it's about the best contrast I've seen in there. And there is always a great point where therapy is a healthy part of building a phenomenal relationship. And as a coach, we look at that impact and we say, what is stopping you? What is interfering with the relationship? And what can we do to build a stronger foundation of love, compassion, mercy, cooperation, commitment, and recognize that we get stuck in our mind. Mm-hmm. We get stuck in our pain. We get stuck in the past. And coaching helps you get unstuck. And that's some of the biggest helpful hints I can give you is get rid of your baggage, get rid of the debris, because when you have all this baggage and debris in front of you, and I'm carrying it around, now look at the barrier between me and the other person. They cannot penetrate this barrier. When I get rid of the baggage and I open myself up, now my heart is available for you to come in and go, that's why I married you.
So help me understand, because, again, I do therapy. I mean, I do counseling and I do coaching, and I actually prefer coaching for a lot of different reasons, because I do think it is very forward focused. But don't we have to find out? I mean, isn't the baggage about what's happened to us in the past?
Well, it's about those past events and how they're impacting you today. Mm-hmm. And that is a key distinction in here, because we can go back and let's say in a previous relationship, you had that other person who was drinking, doing alcohol, and was treating you with dishonor and disrespect, going to strip joints and all of these crazy things. Well, in understanding why that person was choosing that, unless that person is in the room and is going to be able to really give you an understanding of why they were, what was driving their behavior, we're going to end up with a one-sided conversation from that person and their perspective.
Right.
So therefore, as a part of a coaching program, we don't spend a lot of time in all those whys, because there's a lot of distortion. There's a lot of things in there that you may have a idea of what really did happen. And instead of spending our time in that area, we spend our time in how is that impacting you? And what are the things that are the pain part for you? What hurts you? And we look at that, we help you resolve that pain, and then we look at the things that you're anchored into, because you're anchored into, I have to be safe. Because this guy will say, this guy treated me really bad. He hurt me, he used me, he abused me, he put me down. So therefore, I'm now going to wear a protective coat, and I'm going to keep myself protected from any guy in the new relationship. So they're anchored back into what was going on with that guy. And the minute we break that anchor, all the whys in the world are not going to matter. Yeah.
And I see this frequently where maybe a previous partner was unfaithful. And so, it gets into the mind that, well, all men cheat. It's like, well, first off, that's not a true statement, because all men don't do anything. All people don't do. I mean, there is no all whatever does whatever. But that's the lens that I take on. So when I interact with my new partner, I am going to act in a distrustful way, and that's the impact. They are going to feel not trusted, and that has a dynamic in the relationship. Even though the person who's standing right in front of you may be perfectly trustworthy, they're not being treated that way, and so So I'm understanding that that's the anchor, that's the stuckness, right?
Yes, it is. And they're stuck in this vicious cycle that just keeps rotating around and circling back to the same place. So as a part of coaching, what we do is we go right into that impact and then accountability. And it's about clarity, awareness. It's about understanding yourself, what drives your behavior, and then what do you bring to the relationship? And I know you and I are both so good at this, because we show them how to bring the best of themselves into the relationship, no matter what has happened in the past. So think about this. This is a great tip right here. Think about, I'm going to turn around and look into the past to see who I am. And now I'm looking in the past to see who I am. And then I pick the baggage of the past up. I'm twisted, contorted, looking in the past, trying to go forward. Now, am I going to have...
Which just makes it so much harder.
Yeah, because I'm going to run into all kinds of barriers, bump into things. The other person isn't going to be able to get close to me. They're going to see I'm defensive. They're going to see I'm not trusting them, which means, do I really trust myself? So trust in a relationship is so important, and it starts with self-trust, self-care, self-love. And what do you think about all those elements of self? Is it selfish?
Oh, well, no, the problem is, I mean, I hate when people say that taking care of yourself or doing some kind of self-analysis is selfish, because there's a great line, wherever I go, I take myself with me. So I'm there no matter what. But what you just said brings me to a point that I really wanted to make, because one of your stances is that it's not about finding yourself, but it's about creating yourself. And that discussion of turning around and looking behind us at who we have been that's kind of the finding yourself, isn't it? So what is it that people can do to create themselves, and why is that helpful for relationships?
Well, what is wonderful, and that is just a fantastic question, is that when you look back in your past, we say that's who I am. And that statement in itself is 100% flawed. It's a lie. Those are the choices you made in that particular circumstance. It is not who you are. So in order for you to see who you are, you have to step in the here and now. Mm-hmm. And the here and now is all about choice. And it's all about taking ownership of every single choice I make in this very moment, moving myself forward. And the only way I can free myself is stop looking into my past choices to create my identity of who I am now and who I will be tomorrow.
Right. But this is kind of what we do, because we get into the habit of doing things based on choices we've made over our lives. And, to me, this is one of the things that I think coaching is really helpful for, because as a coach, we can see how some of those choices have interacted and brought you to where you are today. And then it's, okay, so here's the choices you've been making. Do you still want to continue to make them, knowing that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is one definition of insanity? If we want something different, we have to do something different. But over the course of time, we tend to have minimized what we see as our choices. I mean, one of the things with relationships, it's well, things will stay the same, or we have to end it. It's like, no, there's a bunch of stuff in between. You can actually work to make it different. But we get into that binary, this or that, yes or no kind of thing that I think coaching really helps people break out of.
Oh, yeah. And what you were talking about is a foundation of understanding yourself, of loving yourself, of believing in yourself, of being the best healthy you can possibly be, and then bringing that to the relationship, bringing that to the other person. Because we talked about behaviors, and behaviors are simply choices. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we program ourselves to make them default behaviors. So when I walk in the house and I've had a tough day, my default behavior is to go inward, to shut down, because I just simply am not going to handle anything else. And yet, when I personally have done that, and I have my beautiful wife standing at the door waiting for me because she got home early, and she goes, I have been wanting to look into your eyes and give you a big kiss. My default behavior, my bad behaviors have shut the door on that without me even saying a word to her. So body language in a relationship is so important, because when I got this baggage closed off, I got a scowl on my face.
Right.
is she going to want to give me a kiss, or she's going to go, whoa, hey.
Right. It's like, okay, let me go hug the porcupine. Right?
Yes, it is. And that's what coaching does. And coaching has a lot of aspects of therapy in it. Mm-hmm. And that is the wonderful thing about those two modalities here, is they're able to complement each other. So I work with couples and people that are in therapy, and I work with the therapists. I call them up. We have lunch. We have dinner. We get on the same program here. We make sure that we're not doing conflicting things here. So when we work together as a team, oh my gosh, great things can happen.
So, Michael, this has been really, really helpful. Can you please tell people where they can find more about you and your work?
Oh, yes. And one of the great places you can go is definitely to the website. You'll see you'll see videos of people who have done some coaching with me and what was their outcome. And you can find it on Create It Now Coach. And that's why my name is to createitnowcoach.com. And you can also give me a call on my cell phone or send me a text, which is 719-339-7402. And you can call me at 3 a.m. That's okay. Because what I tell my clients is, please call me before you burn down the house. Then we have to rebuild it. So Don't burn down the relationship. Call me. Let's have a 3 to 5 minute conversation, help you reassess where you're at, what's going on, de-escalate everything, and then we get to go in and to build a beautiful relationship from that point.
So, I just want to remind people that if you've listened to the show before, you know that I never use the word work in relation to marriage. Marriage doesn't take work. It takes intention and attention. And learning and applying the right skills is the key to this success, just like any other area of your life. So hopefully the question becomes, are you ready to take action and learn to create your best life, your best self, your best marriage? So hopefully one of the things that you'll do to keep doing that is to listen to the show. And until next week, stay loving.